My pregnant fiancé said, "These twins aren't yours, they're my ex's. I'm going with him, where I belong." I wished her luck. But 2 weeks later, she was abandoned and her family pressured me to raise 2 children that aren't mine. It is a Tuesday afternoon in October, and I am sitting in what was supposed to be the nursery, watching my wife, Valeria, fold tiny baby clothes while her belly protrudes, as if she were hiding a soccer ball. 6 months pregnant with twins, and she had that glow everyone says pregnant women have. I was 32 years old, working as an auto service manager here in Valencia, and, honestly, I thought I had life figured out. We had been married for 3 years, together for 5, and I was already mentally preparing myself for sleepless nights and diaper changes. Wedding gifts were still arriving from time to time, even though we had gotten married last spring, and we had the hall booked for a baby shower that was supposed to be in 2 weeks. I remember watching her hands tremble slightly as she folded this tiny yellow onesie, and something inside me just knew. You know that feeling when your car makes a weird noise and you pretend it is nothing, but deep down you know you are about to get hit with a very expensive repair bill? That is exactly how I felt. Except instead of engine trouble, my whole world was about to be taken apart. She put down the onesie and turned to look at me with an expression I had never seen before, as if she were about to confess to a murder. "Diego, we need to talk," she told me, and those 4 words hit me like a hammer blow to the chest. I put down the crib instructions I had been pretending to read and gave her my full attention. "These babies," she continued, her voice barely a whisper. "They are not yours." The words hung in the air like exhaust fumes in a closed garage. For a moment, I thought maybe I had misheard her, that she had said something else entirely, but the look on her face confirmed my worst fears. "They are Alejandro's," she added, referring to her ex-boyfriend, whom she had dated before me, some construction foreman with commitment issues who I had honestly never thought much about. "And I am leaving. I am going to start a real family with him." The rational part of my brain wanted to scream, to throw something, to demand answers about when this had happened and how long she had been lying to me. But instead, something strange happened. A strange calm washed over me, like when you finally accept that your engine is blown and it is not worth getting angry at the car. I looked at her sitting there in our nursery, surrounded by all these baby things we had picked out together, and I felt something inside me just disconnect. "I hope it goes well for you," I told her, and I meant it. Not sarcastically, not bitterly, but with the same tone you would use to wish someone well who is moving to another city. She looked at me as if I had just spoken in a foreign language. "That is it? That is all you were going to say?" she asked me, and I could hear the confusion in her voice. Maybe she expected me to beg, to fight for her, to promise to raise Alejandro's children as my own. But here is the thing about betrayal. Sometimes it is so complete, so profound, that it actually sets you free. "What else is there to say, Valeria? You have made your decision." I got up from the rocking chair we had bought for me to use during those late-night feedings that were never going to happen. "I will start the paperwork." And that is exactly what I did. The next morning I took a personal day and began the methodical process of untangling our lives. I started with the wedding gifts, packing up everything that had a gift receipt and taking it back to the stores where they were purchased. The blender went back to El Corte Inglés, the crystal went back to Zara Home, the silverware set went back to IKEA. Every return felt like pulling another thread from a beautiful tapestry I thought we had. Then I contacted the hall about the baby shower reservation and found out I could get most of our deposit back if I canceled within 30 days. 6,800 euros back in my account. Money that would have gone to celebrate children that were not even mine. I removed her from my car insurance policy, which immediately lowered my monthly payment by 140 euros. I closed the joint savings account and transferred my half to a new account she could not access. I updated the beneficiary on my pension plan from Valeria Herrera, wife, to Diego Herrera, senior, father. Every call, every form, every signature felt like taking back a piece of myself that I had freely given to someone who never deserved it. She moved out that weekend while I was at work, which was probably for the best for both of us. No dramatic confrontations, no tearful goodbyes, just empty space in the closet and a bathroom counter suddenly free of her endless collection of skincare products. 2 weeks later, I was settling into my new routine of coming home to a quiet house when I heard her key in the front door. I had forgotten to change the locks, which seemed like an oversight until I saw her standing in my living room with mascara running down her cheeks and her belly even bigger than before. "Diego, I made a terrible mistake," she sobbed, and for a moment I felt that old instinct to comfort her, to make everything okay. But then she continued, "Alejandro left. He has not answered my calls in 4 days. And when I went to his apartment, his roommate said he just packed up and left. His construction crew fired him for missing too much work. And now I do not know where he is or what I am supposed to do." I put down my dinner and really looked at this woman who had been my wife, who had carried what I thought were our children, who had chosen someone else over the life we had built together. The tears were real, the desperation was genuine, but it was not my problem anymore. Let me tell you exactly how the family pressure campaign began. The morning after Valeria's tearful visit, my phone rang at 6 in the morning with a number I did not recognize. Diego Herrera. The voice was sharp, accusatory, as if I had personally wronged this person. "I am Isabella Morales, Valeria's sister." I knew Isabella, 24 years old, still in college, still living in that bubble where everything can be fixed with good intentions and fairy tale thinking. "I cannot believe you would abandon a pregnant woman like that. Do you have any idea what you have done to her?" The audacity hit me like a wrench to the face. Here was someone calling me at dawn to lecture me about abandoning the woman who had abandoned me first, who had been carrying another man's children while I was planning our future. Isabella, I think you might be confused about what really happened here, I said, keeping my voice calm despite wanting to hang up. She left me, remember? For the father of those babies. But Isabella was not interested in facts. That does not matter. She needs you now, Diego. Those babies need a father figure, and you are being selfish by turning your back on them. Selfish. That word stuck with me all day as I worked on rebuilding a transmission. Because it takes a special kind of mental gymnastics to call someone selfish for refusing to raise another man's children after being betrayed. That afternoon I received a message from Rosa Morales, Valeria's mother, a school secretary who had always treated me as if I were not good enough for her daughter, but tolerated me because I had a steady job and treated Valeria well. We need to talk. I am coming to your house after work tomorrow. It was not a request. Rosa Morales showed up at my door the next evening as if she owned the place, walking past me into my living room without an invitation. She was 53. She had that authoritarian school administrator energy that made grown men feel like they were back in the principal's office, being scolded for something they did not do. Sit down, Diego. We are going to discuss how you are going to act like a real man and take responsibility for this situation. I remained standing, crossing my arms. Rosa, with all due respect, your daughter chose to leave me for the real father of those children. I am not responsible for cleaning up the mess when that did not work out. Her face turned red, and I could see where Valeria got her dramatics from. Those babies did not ask to be born into this situation. You have the power to give them a stable home, a father who will not abandon them, and you are choosing your pride over innocent children. The manipulation was so transparent, it was almost insulting. My pride. Her daughter was pregnant with another man's children while married to me. Rosa, this is not about pride, it is about reality. But it was not over. Alejandro is gone, Diego. Valeria made a mistake, but that does not mean you should punish innocent babies for it. You made vows for better or for worse. I had to laugh at that one. The vows went both ways, and Valeria broke hers when she decided to have an affair and lie to me for months. Meanwhile, my friend Antonio Ruiz, who works as an insurance adjuster and has a knack for finding information on people, had been looking into Alejandro Torres after I mentioned the situation to him. Antonio called me that Friday with details that painted an even clearer picture of Valeria's poor judgment. Dude, your ex-wife really knows how to pick them, Antonio told me over beers after work. Alejandro Torres owes 15,000 euros in gambling debts to some pretty serious people. Word is, he took that construction job in Madrid as a way to disappear from his creditors here in Valencia. The guy has not contacted Valeria since she moved in with him, and, from what I hear, he never had any intention of sticking around and playing house. 15,000 euros in gambling debts. Suddenly, Alejandro's disappearing act made perfect sense, and I felt a strange mix of vindication and pity for Valeria. She had thrown away our marriage for a man who was using her as a temporary hideout from his own problems. During this time, Valeria kept trying to access our old joint account, which obviously did not work since I had closed it weeks before. She would send me message after message, each one more desperate than the last. Diego, please, just talk to me. We can work this out together. Then, I know but we have history. That has to count for something. And finally, I am scared and I am alone and I do not know what to do. Please, do not abandon me like this. Each message felt like emotional manipulation disguised as vulnerability, and I found myself taking screenshots and sending them to Antonio, who had started documenting everything in case I needed legal protection later. The pressure from her family intensified over the week. Her father, Luis, a postal worker who had always been the quiet one, called me once, his voice tired. Diego, I am not going to tell you what to do, but Rosa has been crying every night over this situation. Maybe you could consider helping in some way. Even he could not fully commit to asking me to take back his pregnant, unfaithful daughter, which told me everything I needed to know about what they really thought of Valeria's decisions. But the most revealing moment came when Isabella showed up at my workshop during lunch, 8 months pregnant now, and clearly struggling. Diego, look at her. She is 7 months pregnant with twins, and working on her feet all day at the dental office. Her blood pressure is high, she is exhausted, and she is staying in some cheap motel because she cannot afford anything else. How can you just watch this happen? I put down my sandwich and looked at this young woman who still believed that good intentions could rewrite history. Isabella, I am not watching anything happen. Your sister made a series of choices that led her to this situation. Alejandro Torres is responsible for those children and for taking care of their mother. The fact that he is a deadbeat who ran away does not transfer that responsibility to me. The desperation in Isabella's eyes was real, but so was my resolve. The confrontation I had been dreading finally happened on a Thursday afternoon in November. I was under the hood of a 2018 Seat Leon, diagnosing what sounded like a timing chain issue when I heard familiar footsteps on the concrete floor of my workshop. I did not need to look up to know it was Valeria. I recognized her walk, that slightly off-balance gait she had developed as her pregnancy progressed. But when I finally straightened up and turned around, the sight of her made me do a double take. 8 months pregnant now, she looked like she had aged 5 years in the last few weeks. Her usually perfect blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her work uniform was wrinkled as if she had slept in it, and there were dark circles under her eyes that makeup could not hide. More than that, she had this desperate energy radiating from her like heat from an overheating engine. Diego, we need to talk, please, just 5 minutes. Her voice broke on the word please, and I could see my coworkers pretending not to watch as they worked on their own projects. This was exactly the kind of drama I had been trying to avoid, but she had brought it straight to my place of work. Valeria, you cannot just show up at my job like this. We have already said everything we needed to say to each other. I wiped my hands on a shop rag, trying to keep my voice professional and calm, but she moved closer, and I could see tears starting to form in her eyes. Alejandro took everything, Diego, everything. He did not just disappear, he emptied my savings account, maxed out my credit cards, and left me with nothing. I found out yesterday that he had been using my information to take out cash advances for weeks before he vanished. The words hit me like a punch to the gut, not because I felt sorry for her, but because the sheer stupidity of the situation was staggering. She had given this man access to her finances while pregnant with his children, and he had completely robbed her before fleeing his responsibilities. "I am staying at the Motel 6 off the highway," she continued, her voice getting smaller with each word. "I can barely afford it, and my credit cards are almost maxed out. The dental office cut my hours because some patients complained I was too emotional during their cleanings, and Dr. Peterson said my personal problems were affecting the work environment." I put down the shop rag and really looked at this woman who had once been my wife, who had shared my bed and my dreams and my bank account. The Valeria I had married would never have found herself in a highway motel, pregnant and broke. But that Valeria had also never existed. She had always been a carefully constructed facade hiding someone who made catastrophically bad decisions. "My blood pressure has been high," she added, putting a hand on her swollen belly. "The doctor said I need to reduce stress and get more rest, but how can I rest when I do not know where I will be sleeping next week? My family keeps telling me this is all my fault for making bad choices, but they are not really helping me. Mom lectures me about responsibility while Dad just shakes his head and goes back to watching TV. Isabella says I brought this on myself, and I should have known I could not trust Alejandro." The irony was almost beautiful in its completeness. The same family members who had been calling me selfish for not taking her back were now treating her like a cautionary tale when she actually needed help. "Diego, I know I hurt you in ways I cannot even begin to make up for, but I am desperate here. I have no one else to turn to." She was openly crying now, and part of me, the part that had loved her for 5 years, wanted to reach out and comfort her. But that impulse died when I remembered all those months she had been lying to me. All those times she had let me talk about our future while knowing she was carrying another man's children. "Valeria, I am sorry you are in this situation. I really am, but Alejandro Torres is the father of those babies, which makes him responsible for taking care of you and them. The fact that he turned out to be exactly the kind of man everyone, but you could see he was, does not change that." Her face crumpled, and for a moment, she looked like a lost little girl rather than a grown woman who had made adult decisions. "He is gone, Diego. His phone is disconnected, his apartment is empty, and even his coworkers do not know where he went. I hired a private investigator with the last of my savings, and all he could tell me was that he probably left Spain altogether. I am never going to see him again, and these babies are never going to know their father." The weight of her situation hung between us like exhaust fumes, thick and suffocating. I could see my coworkers trying to look busy while obviously listening to every word, and I knew this conversation would be the topic of discussion in the break room for weeks, but none of that mattered as much as the decision I was facing now. She was standing there, 8 months pregnant with twins, broke and scared, and asking me to save her from the consequences of her own choices. The old Diego, the one who had loved her unconditionally, might have said yes. But that Diego had died the night she told me those babies were not mine. "I cannot help you, Valeria. Those children have a father, and it is not me. The fact that he is a coward who ran away does not make them my responsibility." She stared at me for a long moment, as if she were seeing me clearly for the first time in years. Then she nodded once, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, and walked out of my workshop without another word. Fast forward 9 months, and let me paint you a picture of how it all turned out. I was pushing my cart down the cereal aisle at Mercadona on a Saturday morning when I heard a sound that stopped me in my tracks. The distinct, wailing cry of twin babies echoing through the store like a car alarm you cannot turn off. Something about those cries made me look up from the granola bars I had been comparing, and that is when I saw her. Valeria was 3 aisles over in the baby food section, looking like she had been put through a blender set on high speed. Her hair was pulled back in what used to be called a mom bun, but it looked more like she had given up halfway through styling it. She was wearing sweatpants and a stained t-shirt that hung off her frame, as if she had lost weight she could not afford to lose. The double stroller in front of her contained 2 red-faced infants who were competing to see who could scream louder, while she frantically sifted through a coupon organizer with trembling hands. I watched her count out coupons like they were €100 bills, checking each one twice before adding a jar of baby food to her cart. The sight should have made me feel something. Pity, vindication, maybe even a twisted sense of satisfaction. Instead, I felt nothing but a mild curiosity, like watching a nature documentary about animals I would never encounter in real life. She was a stranger, someone whose problems belonged to a different world than mine. I turned my cart and finished my shopping in a different section of the store, picking up the organic pasta Sophia had asked me to buy and the good coffee we both loved. 9 months had changed everything for both of us, just in opposite directions. Later that week, my coworker, Ricardo, pulled me aside during our lunch break with that look people get when they are about to deliver unwanted news. "Hey man, I got a weird call yesterday. A lady named Rosa Morales said she knows you. She wanted me to pass on a message." I put down my sandwich and braced myself because I knew exactly what was coming. Rosa Morales had apparently tracked down someone from my workplace and decided to make one final play for her daughter's well-being. She said to tell you that Valeria is really struggling and that you could still be the father those babies need. She said something about it not being too late to do the right thing. Ricardo looked uncomfortable delivering the message, as if he knew he was stepping into something complicated but could not help it. The audacity was almost impressive. After 9 months of silence, Rosa was still trying to manipulate me into cleaning up her daughter's mess. Ricardo, I appreciate you passing that on, but here's the thing. Those babies already have a father. His name is Alejandro Torres, and he made them his responsibility the moment Valeria chose him over our marriage. The fact that he is not living up to that responsibility does not transfer it to me. Ricardo nodded and never brought it up again, which told me he understood the situation better than Valeria's family ever would. Through Antonio's information network, I had learned bits and pieces about how Valeria had been doing after the twins were born. She had moved back into her childhood bedroom at her parents' house, which could not have been easy for a woman who had grown accustomed to being married and independent. Her parents provided childcare when she worked her part-time shifts at the dental office, but it apparently came with a steady stream of criticism about her life choices. Alejandro had been located exactly twice in 9 months, both times when the state garnished wages from temporary construction jobs he had picked up in different cities. The child support payments were sporadic at best and barely covered diapers when they did arrive. According to Antonio's sources, Valeria was dealing with postpartum depression on top of everything else, which made sense given that she was essentially a single mother living under her parents' roof, while being reminded daily how she had created this situation herself. Meanwhile, my life had taken a completely different trajectory. I had met Sofia Mendez 6 months earlier when she brought her elderly dog to the emergency vet clinic next to my workshop. She was a veterinary technician, 31 years old, with this calm confidence that came from dealing with crisis situations at work every day. What started as casual conversation while I was waiting for a tow truck had turned into coffee dates, then dinners, then lazy Sunday mornings reading the newspaper together while she made better pancakes than I had ever tasted. Sophia knew my whole story. I had told her everything on our third date because I believed in being upfront about baggage. Her response had been perfect. So you were telling me you are a man who honors his commitments and expects the same from others? That sounds like a feature, not a flaw. She appreciated my emotional maturity, my loyalty, and the fact that I had handled the whole situation without becoming bitter or vengeful. You could have made Valeria's life a living hell, she told me one afternoon as we sat on my back deck watching the sunset. You could have contested the divorce, fought over assets, made everything as difficult as possible. Instead, you just stepped aside and let her live with her choices. That takes a special kind of strength. That conversation made me realize something important about what had happened over the last year and a half. Everyone kept talking about revenge, about getting back at Valeria for what she had done to me. Her family thought I was being vengeful by not taking her back. Some of my friends thought I should have been more aggressive in making her suffer consequences. But the truth was simpler than either of those options. I had not sought revenge on Valeria because I did not need to. She had chosen Alejandro Torres over our marriage, over our life together, over everything we had built. The most respectful thing I could do was to honor that decision and allow her to live with whatever came of it. Her current situation was not the result of my cruelty or revenge. It was the natural consequence of choosing someone who was not ready for the responsibility of a family. Alejandro had shown her exactly who he was, and I had simply refused to rescue her from that reality. As I sat there with Sophia, watching the sky turn orange and pink, as she told me about a particularly challenging surgery they had performed that day, I realized that the best revenge had truly been no revenge at all. I had simply moved on with my life, found someone who valued the same things I did, and built something new and better than what I had lost.